The alien Empress declared I belonged to her and demanded I become her husband. In a small town called Millfield. Claire lived alone in a house with blue shutters and a garden full of wildflowers. She worked at the post office, knew everyone's name, and spent her evenings reading old science fiction books. She never believed in aliens, not really. They were just stories for her, fun to imagine, but not real. That changed on the night the sky cracked open. It started with a sound like thunder, but deeper, slower, as if the world itself was groaning. People ran outside, phones in hand, eyes wide. Above the town, the clouds split apart, and a ship came through. It was huge, smooth, and black as midnight, with lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. It hovered over the school field, silent and still. No one moved. No one spoke. Then a ramp lowered and a woman walked down. She was tall, taller than any person Claire had ever seen. Her skin was deep violet. Her eyes glowed silver and her hair moved like it had a mind of its own, curling and uncurling in the air. She wore a suit that shimmered like oil on water, and when she stepped onto the grass, the ground didn't bend under her weight. She looked around, calm and certain, until her eyes landed on Claire. "You?" the woman said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it filled Claire's head like a song she'd always known. "You are mine." Claire froze. Her heart pounded, but her feet wouldn't run. The woman walked straight to her, ignoring the gasps and whispers of the crowd. She stopped just an arm's length away and reached out. Her fingers brushed Claire's cheek, warm and soft, yet humming with energy. "I am Lyra, Empress of the Vathari," the woman said, "and you will be my husband." The word hung in the air like a stone. Husband, not wife, not mate, husband. Claire blinked, confused. "I'm a woman," she said quietly. "To my people," Lyra replied, "gender is not a cage. It is a choice, a role, a promise. The husband of the Empress is the anchor of our soul. He is the one who reminds us how to feel. For centuries we have searched, and now I have found you." Before Claire could protest, light wrapped around her. It wasn't hot or cold, just bright, like being wrapped in sunlight. The next thing she knew, she was standing inside the ship, the town gone, the sky now a sea of stars. The ship was nothing like the cold metal machines from Claire's books. The walls were smooth and warm, covered in patterns that shifted when she looked at them too long. The air smelled like rain and something sweet, like honey mixed with ozone. Lyra led her through winding halls that curved like vines, past rooms where strange plants glowed and hummed. They entered a chamber with a wide window showing a planet ringed with ice. Lyra turned to her. "You are afraid?" "Yes," Claire admitted. "But also curious. Why me? Out of billions of people on Earth, why pick me?" "Because you listen," Lyra said. "Most humans speak too much. They shout, they argue, they fill silence with noise. But you sit in quiet. You watch. You notice the small things. That is rare. That is precious." Claire thought of her job at the post office. She remembered how she always noticed when Mrs. Ellis forgot her glasses or when little Ben drew pictures on his envelopes. She remembered how she'd sit on her porch at dusk, just watching the fireflies, not needing to say a word. Maybe Lyra was right. Over the next few days, Claire learned about the Vathari. They were ancient, peaceful, and deeply connected to the universe. They didn't use money or weapons. They shared everything. But something was wrong. Their children were few. Their songs were fading. Their hearts were growing quiet. "We have forgotten how to ache," Lyra explained one evening as they sat on a balcony made of living crystal. "We feel joy but not longing. We feel peace but not passion. We need someone who still knows how to burn, and you think that's me?" Claire asked. "I know it," Lyra said. "But I'm just ordinary," Claire said. "I fold laundry. I water plants. I cry at sad movies, exactly." Lyra smiled. "You are real. You are raw. You are human. That is what we have lost." Still, Claire struggled. She missed her home. She missed her cat Mittens. She missed the smell of coffee in the morning and the sound of rain on her roof. She didn't want to be a savior. She didn't want to be anyone's husband. One night she stood by the window, staring at a distant star that looked like Earth. Lyra came in quietly. "You can go back," Lyra said. "I will not keep you. The ship can return you tomorrow. No harm done." Claire turned. "Really? Really?" Lyra nodded. "But know this. If you leave, the Vathari will continue to fade. Not with violence, but with silence. We will become ghosts in our own world." Claire looked down. "I don't even know if I can help." "You already have," Lyra said. "Since you arrived, our gardens have bloomed brighter. Our children laugh more. Even the stars seem closer. Claire didn't answer, but that night she dreamed of Millfield. She saw her empty house, her cat waiting by the door, her favorite chair gathering dust. But she also saw Lyra sitting alone on a throne of light, surrounded by beauty but utterly alone. When she woke, her pillow was wet. The next morning, she found Lyra in the garden chamber, where flowers grew in spirals and sang soft notes when touched. "I'll stay," Claire said. Lyra looked up, her silver eyes wide. "But not as your husband," Claire added, "as your partner. As your equal. I won't be a symbol. I won't be a cure. I'll just be me, with all my fears and doubts and messy feelings." Lyra stood slowly. "That is all I ever wanted." Weeks passed. Claire learned the Vathari language, which was spoken not with words but with tones and gestures. She helped design new ceremonies that mixed human emotion with Vathari calm. She taught Lyra how to make pancakes, how to dance badly in the rain, how to cry when something hurt. In return, Lyra showed Claire how to hear the music of planets, how to feel the pulse of time, how to sit in silence without needing to fill it. One day, the elders of the Vathari summoned them. They were tall and ageless, their skin like polished stone, their eyes full of stars. They sat in a circle of floating light. "The bond is true," one elder said. "The balance has returned. We feel it in our bones." Claire looked at Lyra and took her hand. It wasn't marriage like on Earth. It was deeper. It was a promise to stay, to grow, to face the unknown together. Months later, Claire stood on the highest balcony of the palace, watching twin moons rise over a city built on clouds. Lyra joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever regret it?" Claire asked. "Never," Lyra said. "You gave us back our heart and you gave me a home I never knew I needed," Claire replied. Back on Earth, stories spread. Some said Claire was kidnapped. Others said she vanished. But in Millfield, her neighbors kept her garden alive. Her cat was adopted by the baker down the street. And sometimes, on clear nights, people swore they saw a silver light in the sky, watching over them. Meanwhile, across the stars, a quiet woman from a small town and an alien Empress built a new kind of life. Not with power or control, but with kindness, curiosity, and the courage to be vulnerable. Claire never wore a crown. She didn't need to. The Vathari bowed to her not because she was Empress, but because she reminded them how to be alive. Lyra often said the stars sang louder now. Claire would smile and say it was just the wind, but deep down she knew. Some songs are meant to be heard together, and though she missed Earth, she didn't feel lost. She felt found, not as a hero, not as a wife or husband, but as Claire, human, flawed, and finally fully seen. In the end, it wasn't about belonging to someone. It was about choosing to walk beside them even when the path led through galaxies. And Claire, once just a post office clerk with a love for old books, had walked further than anyone ever imagined. The universe was vast, yes, but love, she learned, was vaster. The alien Empress declared I belonged to her and demanded I become her husband. Peace returned to the Vathari world. But it was a different kind of peace now, deeper, richer, woven with threads of memory and shared pain. Claire walked the crystal paths with more confidence, her steps lighter, her voice steady. She no longer felt like a guest. She was part of the rhythm, part of the song, yet something stirred in her chest that she could not name. It was not sadness, not fear, but a quiet pull, like a tide calling from far away. One morning, while tending to the memory orchard, a grove where each tree held a story from a Vathari life, Claire found a new sapling growing where none had been before. Its leaves shimmered with faint images. A blue planet, a small house with blue shutters, a cat sleeping in a sunbeam. Her breath caught. It was Earth, not as she remembered it, but as it was now. She touched a leaf. Warmth spread through her fingers, and a voice, not Lyra's, not anyone's she knew, whispered in her mind. "They need you." She ran to the palace, heart pounding. Lyra was in the star chamber, speaking with elders about trade routes with the newly reformed Korak. When she saw Claire's face, she dismissed them with a wave. "What is it?" Lyra asked. Claire showed her the sapling. It showed me Earth, and it said they need me. Lyra's silver eyes dimmed with concern. The orchard only shows what the planet wishes to share. If it spoke to you, it is urgent. They went to the core chamber, where the great heart of the world pulsed strong and bright. Claire placed her hands on its surface. Visions flooded her, not of war or disaster, but of silence. Cities stood empty. Fields grew wild. People moved like ghosts, eyes dull, voices flat. Something had drained the joy from Earth. Not a weapon, not a plague, but a slow fading like a candle burning out. It's happening to them too, Claire whispered. They're losing their feeling. Just like you almost did. Lyra understood at once. Your world is young. It has not learned to protect its heart. It is drowning in noise, yet starving for connection. Can we go back? Claire asked. The journey is dangerous, Lyra said. Our ship can cross the void, but Earth's skies are watched now. Other empires have heard of our renewal. They see your world as weak, ripe for harvest. Then we go quietly, Claire said, not as Empress and human, just as two people who care. Lyra studied her face. You know, if we go, we may not return. I know, Claire said, but if I can help even one person remember how to feel, it's worth it. Preparations began in secret. The ship was cloaked in shadow weave, invisible to scanners. They took no guards, no weapons, only a seed from the memory orchard and a vial of core light. Before they left, the elders gathered. You carry more than yourselves, one said. You carry the hope of two worlds. Claire nodded. I won't forget. The voyage took 7 cycles. Claire spent most of it watching the stars, remembering constellations from her childhood. Lyra meditated, weaving protective songs into the ship's hull. When Earth finally appeared, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds, Claire cried. Not from sadness, but from awe. It was so small, so fragile, so full of life. They landed not in Millfield, but in a quiet forest in Oregon, far from cities and satellites. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Birds called. A deer watched them from the trees, unafraid. It felt like coming home. They walked for days, staying off roads, avoiding towns. But the silence Claire had seen in the vision was real. When they passed a gas station, the clerk spoke in monotone, eyes fixed on a screen. In a diner, people ate alone, scrolling, not speaking. Even children played with tablets, not each other. What happened here? Lyra asked softly. They forgot to look up, Claire said. They got lost in their machines. In their rush. In their fear. They reached Millfield on a rainy afternoon. Claire's house still stood, though the garden was overgrown. Mittens was gone, but a new cat, gray with green eyes, sat on the porch watching them. The neighbors had kept the place clean, as if waiting. That night, Claire dreamed of the core. It showed her a signal, a low-frequency broadcast from a government lab in Nevada. It pulsed every hour, calm and steady, meant to reduce anxiety, to keep people docile. But it had gone too far. It wasn't calming minds. It was numbing them. That's it, she told Lyra at dawn. That signal is draining them. They traveled south, moving like shadows. The lab was hidden beneath a desert mountain, guarded by drones and silent soldiers. But Lyra knew how to slip past. She sang a note so low it vibrated the rock, opening a crack in the wall. Inside, the air hummed with cold energy. They found the source in a central chamber, a massive machine shaped like a tuning fork, glowing with pale blue light. Wires snaked into the earth, feeding the signal across the continent. We can't destroy it, Lyra said. The sudden silence might shock them into chaos. Then we change it, Claire said. We give it a new song. She took the vial of core light and poured it over the machine. Lyra placed her hands on its surface and began to sing. Not a Vathari hymn, but a lullaby Claire used to hum when she was sad. The machine shuddered. The blue light turned gold. The hum softened, warmed, became a gentle rhythm like a heartbeat. All across America, people stopped. A mother looked at her child and really saw her for the first time in months. A teenager put down his phone and called his grandmother. A soldier on duty felt tears on his cheeks and didn't know why, but didn't wipe them away. The change was slow but real. They returned to Millfield as autumn painted the trees in red and gold. People were talking again, on porches, in cafes, on sidewalks. Laughter returned. So did arguments, tears, messy, beautiful human noise. One evening, Claire sat on her old porch swing. Lyra sat beside her, head on her shoulder. Will you stay here now? Lyra asked. Claire looked at the stars. I belong to two worlds now. Maybe I don't need to choose. Just then, the gray cat jumped into her lap. It purred, loud and content. Back on the Vathari world, the memory orchard grew a new branch, one that bore leaves showing Earth's skies, its cities, its people slowly waking up. The elders smiled. The bond was whole. Months passed. Claire and Lyra moved between worlds, never staying too long in one place. They taught small groups how to listen, how to feel without fear. They left no grand monuments, no laws, only quiet seeds of change. One day, A young girl in Millfield found a strange flower in the woods. Its petals glowed faintly, and when she held it, she felt calm for the first time since her brother left for war. She didn't know where it came from. She just knew it helped. In Nevada, scientists studied the change signal but could not explain it. They called it the harmony frequency. They played it in hospitals and schools. It worked better than any drug. And in the Vathari capital, children played games that mixed human stories with alien myths. They called Claire the bridge walker, the heart speaker. But Claire never saw herself that way. She was just Claire, a woman who loved books, cats, and quiet mornings. A woman who happened to fall in love with an empress from the stars. One night, as they stood on a hill outside Millfield, watching the Milky Way stretch across the sky, Lyra took her hand. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't chosen you?" she asked. "All the time," Claire said, "but I'm glad you did, and I am glad you stayed," Lyra said. They didn't speak for a long time. They just stood there, two souls from different worlds, breathing the same air, feeling the same wind. The universe was vast, yes, but in that moment it felt small enough to hold in their hands, and that was enough. Love had not conquered galaxies. It had not rewritten laws or toppled empires. It had simply reminded two worlds how to be alive. And in the end, that was the most powerful thing of all. Claire leaned into Lyra's shoulder. Somewhere a dog barked. A car drove by with music playing. The stars watched, silent and kind. Home, Claire thought. Wherever we are, this is home. And for the first time in her life, she truly believed it. The alien empress declared I belonged to her and demanded I become her husband. Life on the Vathari homeworld settled into a rhythm Claire never expected. Mornings began with soft chimes that rose from the walls like birdsong. She would wake in a room where the ceiling showed the slow drift of nebulae, and Lyra would already be there, sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing in time with the planet's pulse. Claire never asked how Lyra knew when she was awake. She just accepted it, like she accepted the way the air smelled like cinnamon after rain, or how the doors opened only when you truly wanted to pass through. They spent their days walking through floating gardens where trees bore fruit that changed flavor with your mood. Sometimes they visited the memory pools, shallow basins of liquid light where Vathari could share feelings without words. At first, Claire was afraid to step in, but Lyra held her hand and said, "Trust me." When she did, she saw flashes of Lyra's childhood, a silver forest under twin suns, the first time she felt loneliness, the weight of becoming Empress too young. And Lyra saw Claire's memories too. The day her parents died in a car crash, the quiet grief that followed, the way she learned to find joy in small things like library books and stray cats. That sharing changed something between them. It wasn't just partnership anymore. It was kinship, but peace never lasts long in the universe. One evening, as they watched the sky turn violet with dusk, an alarm hummed through the palace, not loud, but urgent, like a heartbeat skipping. Lyra's eyes snapped open. Her silver glow dimmed to steel. "The Korak have returned," she said. "Who are they?" Claire asked. "Raiders," Lyra replied. "Scavengers. They do not build. They take. They once tried to steal our core, the living heart of our world. We drove them back, but they never forgot. And now, they know we have changed. They know we are vulnerable again." "Why would they care about us changing?" Claire asked. "Because emotion is weakness to them," Lyra said. "They believe feeling makes you slow, soft, easy to break. And now with you here, with our people laughing and crying again, they think we are ripe for conquest." Within hours, the palace transformed. The gentle lights hardened into sharp blues. The singing plants fell silent. Warriors in armor made of woven starlight gathered in the great hall. They carried no weapons Claire could see, but their eyes held storms. Lyra turned to Claire. "You must stay hidden." "No," Claire said. "If this is because of me, I won't hide." "It is not because of you," Lyra said gently. "It is because they fear what they cannot control. But you are not trained for war." "I don't need training to stand with you," Claire said. "I may not know how to fight, but I know how to be seen. And if they think you're weak because you feel, then let them see us together. Let them see that feeling is not weakness, it's strength." Lyra stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. The Korak ships arrived at dawn, jagged black vessels that tore through the sky like claws. They landed on the crystal plains outside the capital. From them emerged beings twice the size of humans, covered in armored scales with eyes like burning coals. Their leader stepped forward, his voice a grinding rumble that shook the ground. "Empress Lyra," he bellowed. "You have grown soft. You keep a human pet like a child with a doll. Surrender your core or we will burn your world to ash." Lyra walked out alone, but Claire followed, barefoot on the warm stone, her simple robe fluttering in the wind. The Vathari gasped. The Korak laughed. "You bring your toy to war, Empress?" The leader sneered. "She is not my toy," Lyra said. "She is my heart." Claire stepped forward. "And you're wrong about us. Feeling doesn't make us weak. It makes us brave. You're scared, aren't you? Scared that if you let yourself feel even a little, you'll remember you're not just machines. You're alive." The Korak leader snarled and raised a weapon that crackled with dark energy. But before he could fire, the ground beneath him rippled. Vines of light shot up, wrapping around his legs. Not from Lyra, from the planet itself. The Vathari had always believed their world was alive. But now, with Claire's presence, with the return of raw emotion, the planet had awakened fully. Trees bent toward the invaders like shields. Rivers rose in walls of glowing water. Even the wind carried whispers that made the Korak clutch their heads in pain. "How is this possible?" the leader roared. "Because we are not fighting you," Claire said. "We are protecting what we love, and love is stronger than fear." Lyra raised her hands, not to attack but to sing. A single note, pure and clear, echoed across the plain. The Vathari joined her, their voices weaving into a harmony that made the stars tremble. The Korak weapons flickered and died. Their armor cracked. Not from force, but from resonance, from a frequency their cold hearts could not withstand. The leader fell to his knees. For the first time, his burning eyes flickered with something like doubt. "What is this pain?" he whispered. "It's feeling," Claire said softly. "It hurts at first, but it also heals." The Korak retreated that day, not in defeat, but in confusion. They left their ships behind, walking back into the wilds, silent and slow. The Vathari did not chase them. They simply opened their doors. In the weeks that followed, something strange happened. A few Korak returned, not as warriors, but as seekers. They sat at the edge of the memory pools, hesitant. One young Korak female, barely more than a child, approached Claire one morning. "Why did your song not break me?" she asked. "Because it wasn't meant to break you," Claire said. "It was meant to remind you." The girl touched her own chest. "It aches here. That's your heart waking up." Claire smiled. Lyra watched from a distance, pride glowing in her eyes. "You did what our armies never could," she said later. "You turned enemies into neighbors." But the victory came with cost. The core, the living heart of the planet, had used too much energy. It dimmed. The gardens wilted. The sky lost its color. The elders gathered again, their faces grave. "The core needs renewal," one said. "It must be fed by a bond of true unity. Not just between two people, but between two worlds." Lyra looked at Claire. "There is a ritual," she said. "Ancient. Dangerous. We must merge our essences in the core chamber. If our spirits are truly aligned, the core will reignite. If not, we may both fade." Claire didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." The core chamber was deep beneath the palace, a cavern filled with liquid light that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center floated a sphere of pure energy, now dull and flickering. Lyra took Claire's hands. "This will hurt," she warned. "I know," Claire said, "but I trust you." They stepped into the light. Agony tore through Claire, not physical, but deeper. It was every fear she'd ever buried, every sorrow she'd swallowed, every doubt she'd hidden. And Lyra felt it all, but she didn't pull away. She held on tighter, and Claire felt Lyra's pain too. The loneliness of command, the guilt of past failures, the terror of losing her people. They wept together in the light. Then, slowly, the pain turned to warmth. Their memories blended. Claire saw Vathari sunsets through Lyra's eyes. Lyra felt the comfort of Claire's old porch swing. They laughed at the same moment, at the memory of Claire burning pancakes, at Lyra trying to pet a squirrel and getting chased up a tree. The core flared. Light exploded through the chamber, up through the palace, across the land. The gardens bloomed anew. The rivers sang. The sky blazed with color. When they emerged, the Vathari cheered. But Claire and Lyra only looked at each other, breathless, changed. "You are part of me now," Lyra whispered. "And you're part of me," Claire replied. News of the core's renewal spread across the galaxy. Other species came, not to conquer, but to learn. They asked how the Vathari had healed their world. Lyra always pointed to Claire. She taught us that to feel is to live, Lyra would say. Claire still missed Earth sometimes. She missed the smell of old paper, the sound of church bells on Sunday morning, the way mittens used to curl up on her lap. But she no longer felt torn. She had built a new home, not by replacing the old one, but by carrying it in her heart one night. As they sat on the balcony watching comets streak across the sky, Claire asked, "Do you think Earth will ever know what happened to me?" Lyra took her hand. "They will feel it," she said. "In their dreams. In their art. In the quiet moments when they choose kindness over fear. That is how your world will know you are still with them." Claire smiled. Maybe that's enough. And it was. For the first time in centuries, the Vathari began to have children again. Not many, but enough. And the first newborn was named Clariel, a blend of both their names. When Claire held the baby, she felt the future in her arms. Fragile, bright, full of possibility. The Korak who stayed became healers. The ones who left carried stories of a world where feeling was power. And somewhere in a small town called Millfield, a new book appeared on the library shelf. No author listed. Just a title, How to Listen to the Stars. People read it and felt strangely calm. They didn't know why. But Claire knew. She had written it in her dreams, and though she was light years away, her voice still reached home. Love, she had learned, was not bound by distance. It was a thread that connected everything, human and alien, past and future, earth and sky. And as long as that thread held, nothing was truly lost. The Empress had claimed her, yes. But in the end, Claire had claimed something far greater, herself, her purpose, and a love that spanned the stars. And that was more than enough. The alien Empress declared I belonged to her and demanded I become her husband. Winter came to Millfield with soft snow and quiet mornings. Claire and Lyra stayed in the blue-shuttered house, its rooms now filled with strange plants that glowed at night and books written in both English and Vathari script. The gray cat, whom Claire had named Stardust, slept curled between them every evening. Life felt peaceful, almost ordinary, but Claire knew better. Peace was never still. It was always growing, shifting, testing its roots. One morning, while making tea, Claire noticed the snow outside wasn't falling straight down. It swirled in slow circles as if guided by an unseen hand. Lyra stood at the window, her silver eyes narrowed. "Something is coming," she said. "Not an enemy?" Claire asked. "Not in the way we know," Lyra replied. "It is older, deeper. The void between stars has stirred." That night, dreams came to Claire, fragmented, cold, filled with silence so complete it felt like drowning. She saw galaxies dimming, not from war or decay, but from something worse, forgetting. Stars blinked out not because they died, but because no one remembered to look at them. Planets turned to dust because their stories were lost. It was the end not with fire, but with absence. She woke gasping. Lyra was already awake, her hand on Claire's forehead. "You felt it too," Claire whispered. "The great forgetting," Lyra said. "It is a force older than empires. It feeds on silence, on disconnection. It grows when beings stop sharing their stories, when they stop believing they matter." "Is it here?" Claire asked. "Not yet, but it is moving toward us, drawn by the silence your world almost fell into, drawn by the fear that still lingers in many hearts." "What can we do?" Claire asked. "We remind them they are seen," Lyra said. "We remind them their voices matter. The void cannot take what is remembered." They began quietly. Claire visited schools not as a hero, but as a storyteller. She sat with children and asked them to tell her about their dreams, their fears, their favorite things. She wrote their words in a journal that glowed faintly when touched. Lyra walked through town, listening not just to words but to the spaces between them. She helped a grieving widow plant a garden. She sat with a lonely veteran and simply held his hand until he cried. Each act was small, but each one pushed back the silence. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other worlds felt the same pull. The Korak sent word. Their outer colonies had gone dark. Not destroyed. Just empty. As if everyone had walked away and never looked back. The Vathari elders reported that ancient songs were fading from the memory pools. Even the core pulsed slower, as if tired. The forgetting was spreading. Claire and Lyra knew they could not fight it with force, so they chose a different path. They would gather stories, not just from Earth, but from every world willing to share. They called it the Weave. a living tapestry of voices, memories, songs, and dreams. They built a small station in orbit above Earth, hidden in the shadow of the moon. It was not made of metal but of light and memory, grown from a cutting of the Vathari memory orchard. Beings from a dozen worlds came, not in warships but in quiet vessels carrying their stories like precious seeds. A Korak elder brought a song his grandmother sang to calm storms. A Waterworld poet shared verses written in ripple patterns. A desert nomad from a dying planet gave them a single grain of sand that held the echo of his home's last sunrise. Claire recorded them all, not with machines but with her heart. She sat with each visitor, listened deeply and let their story settle inside her. Then she whispered it into the core of the station, where it joined the others, weaving a net of light that grew stronger with every voice. But the void sensed the resistance. It sent its shadow not as a ship or a monster but as a feeling. A whisper in the mind that said, "Nothing matters. No one hears you. Your story is small. Forget." People on Earth began to slip again. A teenager deleted all her art, saying it was pointless. A scientist abandoned his research, convinced it would change nothing. Even in Millfield, neighbors stopped waving. The snow fell heavier, muffling sound, covering color. Claire felt it too. One night she stared at her journal and wondered why she bothered. Who would care about a post office clerk's thoughts? She almost closed the book, but Lyra found her. She didn't speak. She just sat beside her and began to hum, a soft, wordless tune that carried the memory of their first meeting. The panic, the wonder, the choice to stay. Claire's tears fell. And with them, the whisper faded. "We are not alone," Lyra said, "and our stories are not small. They are the light that holds back the dark." Renewed, Claire went to the town square the next day. She set up a small table with paper and pens. A sign read, "Tell me your story." No one came at first. Then a little girl approached, clutching a drawing of her dog. "He ran away," the girl said softly. Claire took the drawing. "And your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered. "Thank you, Lily," Claire said. "Your story matters." Word spread, more came. An old man wrote about his first kiss. A nurse shared how she held a patient's hand as he died. A boy described the taste of his grandmother's apple pie. Each story was added to the weave. Above, the station glowed brighter. The void pushed back. Storms raged. Power grids flickered. Fear rose like fog. But Claire and Lyra stood firm. They held community nights in the library where people read poems, sang songs, shared meals. They turned silence into connection. One evening, as the snow finally melted and green shoots pushed through the earth, a message came from the Vathari world. The core had stabilized. The memory orchard bloomed with new colors. The great forgetting had paused at their border, unable to cross the wall of shared voices. "It is working," Lyra said. "But it's not over," Claire replied. "It never will be. As long as there are hearts that feel alone, the void will whisper, 'Our work is never done.'" They knew they could not stay on Earth forever. The weave needed tending across the stars, but they also knew they could not leave it behind. So they left something, a small stone placed in the center of Millfield Park. It looked ordinary, but if you sat near it and spoke your truth, even just a whisper, you felt lighter. Children played around it. Elders rested on its warm surface. No one knew why it helped. They just knew it did. Before they left, Claire visited her old post office. She left a letter for every resident, handwritten, personal. Not grand promises, just simple words. "I see you. Your story matters. Keep telling it." They boarded their ship as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. Stardust watched from the porch, tail flicking as if he understood. In orbit, the weave station pulsed with light. Voices from 100 worlds sang together, not in harmony, but in beautiful, messy chorus. The void retreated, not defeated, but delayed. Claire and Lyra did not return to the Vathari Palace. They became wanderers of the weave, traveling from world to world, gathering stories, mending silence, reminding beings they were not alone. Years passed. On Earth, the stone in the park became a place of quiet strength. People left notes, drawings, seeds. The town thrived, not because it was perfect, but because it remembered to listen. In the Vathari world, children were taught that the greatest power was not in ruling, but in witnessing. The title of husband of the Empress became sacred, not as a role of power, but of presence. And somewhere among the stars, a human woman and an alien Empress sat together in a ship made of memory and light, listening to a new story from a world they had never seen. "Tell me more," Claire would say. And the voice would continue, strong and clear, pushing back the dark one word at a time. Love had not ended the void, but it had given the universe a reason to keep singing, and that was enough. Claire looked at Lyra, her hand in hers, and smiled. They had no map, no destination, only the next story, the next voice, the next chance to say, "You are not forgotten." And in that endless journey, they found home. Not in a place, but in the act of remembering together. The stars watched. The weave grew, and the song went on. The alien Empress declared I belonged to her and demanded I become her husband. Years flowed like rivers through the stars, and Claire and Lyra drifted with them, never settling, always listening. Their ship, grown from a seed of the Vathari memory orchard, changed with every story it carried, its walls blooming with new patterns, its hum shifting to match the songs of those they met. They had no flag, no fleet, no title beyond what others gave them. Some called them the keepers of the weave, others simply the listeners. But even wanderers find echoes of home. One cycle, while orbiting a blue-green world on the edge of known space, Claire felt a familiar tug, not from the weave but from deep in her bones. The planet below had no name in any galactic registry. Its people lived in floating cities above endless oceans, speaking in tones that mimicked whale song. Yet when Claire stepped onto the central platform, built of coral and light, a child ran to her, eyes wide. "You came back," the child said in broken standard. "I've never been here," Claire replied gently. "But you were," the child insisted, "in my dream. You told me to sing when I was scared." Claire knelt. "What did I look like?" "Like you," the child said, "and like her." The child pointed to Lyra, who stood silently nearby, her silver eyes soft. That night, elders of the ocean world invited them to a gathering beneath the waves, in a dome where water flowed like air. They shared food that tasted of salt and starlight, and stories that rose like bubbles from the deep. "We have no war, no hunger," an elder said, "but we are losing our young. They say nothing matters, that the songs of our ancestors are just noise." Claire recognized the whisper. The void had found them too. She did not preach. She did not command. She sat with the youth in the glowing kelp gardens and asked them to teach her their songs. At first they refused, but when Lyra began to hum a tune from Millfield, a lullaby Claire's mother once sang, the youngest girl joined in, her voice trembling but clear. Slowly, others followed. They sang of storms survived, of love lost and found, of the first time they touched the sky. Claire recorded none of it. She let the songs live only in the moment, in the shared breath, in the tears that fell into the sea. By dawn, the children were teaching the elders new verses, ones about hope, about curiosity, about the courage to feel lost and keep singing anyway. As they prepared to leave, the girl who first spoke to Claire pressed a shell into her hand. It glowed faintly. "When you are far," she said, "hold it. You will hear us." Back aboard the ship, Claire placed the shell in the heart chamber where the weave pulsed. It joined the grain of sand, the drawing of the dog, the lullaby, the veteran's silence, the nurse's hand. The station above Earth shone brighter, but peace is never the end of the story. Weeks later, a distress call, faint, broken, almost erased, rippled through the weave. It came not from a planet, but from a derelict vessel drifting near a black hole's edge. The signal carried no words, only a single image, a human face, aged, weary, eyes full of recognition. Claire's breath stopped. It was Mrs. Ellis, the woman from the Millfield post office who always forgot her glasses. She had been gone for years, presumed dead in a transport accident. "How?" Claire whispered. Lyra studied the signal. "Time bends near black holes. She may have lived only days while centuries passed for us, or she may have been taken." They followed the signal, the ship groaning as gravity pulled at its light-borne hull. They found the vessel, a rusted human freighter half swallowed by shadow. Inside, they found Mrs. Ellis, alive but frail, kept in stasis by failing machines. With her were dozens of others, humans, Vathari, Korak, all snatched from different times, different worlds, frozen in silence. "Who did this?" Claire asked, helping Mrs. Ellis sit up. "Not who," Lyra said grimly. "What? The void does not always whisper. Sometimes it collects." "These people were forgotten," Lyra explained. "Not by choice, but by accident. Lost in crashes, vanished in storms, erased from records. The void gathered them, not to harm, but to store, like seeds in a dry season waiting for silence to win. But we remember them. Claire said fiercely. She spoke each name aloud as they carried the sleepers to their ship. She told Mrs. Ellis about Millfield, about the stone in the park, about how her favorite bench still sat under the old oak tree. Tears filled the old woman's eyes. "You didn't forget me," she whispered. "Never," Claire said. They brought the sleepers to the weave station. As each was awakened, their voices joined the chorus. Mrs. Ellis taught them Earth recipes. A Korak boy shared how he tamed a storm beast with kindness. A Vathari poet described the color of joy. The void recoiled, not in rage but in confusion. It could not understand why these lost ones still mattered. "Because they were remembered," Claire said to the stars, "and as long as one voice speaks their name, they are not gone." With the new voices, the weave grew strong enough to reach backward, to heal not just the present but the past. Claire and Lyra began visiting worlds not only to gather stories but to restore them. They helped a desert tribe recover their rain songs. They returned a stolen language to a mountain people. They sat with elders who thought their history was lost and said, "Tell me, I will carry it." On one such journey, they returned to Earth. Millfield had grown, but the stone still stood. Now, it was surrounded by a garden of flowers from every continent. People came from far away just to sit and speak their truth. Claire walked the streets quietly, unrecognized. She saw her old house, now a community library, filled with children reading books, some with pages that glowed when touched. She did not stay long. But before she left, she wrote one more letter and slipped it into the library's suggestion box. It read, "Thank you for remembering." Back among the stars, a new challenge rose, not from the void, but from within. A faction of Vathari, young and impatient, argued that the weave made them weak. They wanted to build weapons, to strike first against the silence. They called Claire a distraction, a human shadow over their Empress. Lyra faced them in the ancestral hall, her voice calm but firm. "You mistake feeling for fragility. The weave is not our weakness. It is our shield. And she is not my shadow. She is my light." Claire stood beside her, not as a ruler but as witness. "I never asked to be here," she told the crowd. "I stayed because I believed in you. In your kindness, your courage, your quiet strength. If you turn from that, you lose more than me. You lose yourselves." The dissent faded, not from fear, but from shame. They had forgotten what the weave was for. Time passed. Claire's hair turned silver. Lyra's glow softened, not from age, but from depth. They no longer needed words to understand each other. A glance, a breath, a shared silence was enough. One evening, as their ship floated near a nebula painted in rose and gold, Claire asked, "Do you ever wonder what happens when we are gone?" "The weave will remain," Lyra said. "Stories do not die, they wait, and someone will always listen." Claire smiled. "Then we have done enough." They did not stop traveling, but they slowed. They spent more time in quiet places, watching sunrises on water worlds, walking forests where trees sang in harmony, sitting with strangers who needed only to be heard. On a small moon with violet grass, they met a girl who had never spoken. She watched them for days. On the third night, she handed Claire a stone carved with a single symbol. Two hands joined. Claire placed it in the heart chamber. The weave pulsed warmly. Years later, that moon became known as the world of listeners. Its people spoke rarely, but when they did, their words carried weight, clarity, love. And so it went. Claire and Lyra never sought glory. They left no monuments, no laws, no empire. Only ripples, small, steady, endless. When Claire finally closed her eyes for the last time, it was on a ship filled with light and memory. Lyra's hand in hers, the voices of 1,000 worlds singing softly around them. She did not fear the dark. She had spent her life filling it with light. Lyra buried her not in soil but in the core of the weave station. A tree grew there, its leaves shimmering with human laughter, Vathari songs, Korak courage, and the quiet strength of a woman who chose to stay. Lyra did not return to her throne. She became the keeper of the tree, tending its branches, sharing its stories. And when travelers asked about the human who walked beside an empress, she would smile and say, "She taught us that to belong is not to be owned, but to be seen." And in every world that remembered, in every voice that rose against the silence, Claire lived on. The void still whispers, but now it whispers to a chorus. And the chorus sings louder. Love had not ended the universe's loneliness, but it had given it a companion, and that was enough. The stars burn. The weave grows. And somewhere, a child picks up a shell, holds it to her ear, and hears a lullaby from a world she's never seen. She smiles and begins to sing.